Hi guys, and welcome to the third part of our tutorial on building RESTful APIs using Express. All right, so today what are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about um, passing parameter through routes to be able to get dynamic information. Because so far, if you've watched the part one and part two, and the third video on how to debug, which is very important. So in part one and part two especially, we were able to create this controller that helps us fetch the list of universities, and then we're able to pass it to a route here. So what this route here is doing is that when we open our Postman and then we call this API URL, it taps into this controller and then it returns the list of schools for us in a JSON format. All right. So today, what are we going to be doing today? Today, I want us to like create another action controller inside the same unit controller, but this time around, instead of returning the list of all the schools, like okay, so 1 minute, let me open my Postman. Um, Postman. Okay, okay. So this is Postman, right? Okay. So presently, when we call that API that I just showed you, this is what we get. We get all the list of schools. But now, so imagine in the real sense, we have built an application. We've built this into a front-end application, which is what we are going to still do. But then that'll be another tutorial when we are done with this one. So when you are able to view all the list of schools, you want to be able to click on a particular school to review all the information about the school. So we need to be able to pass ID here to retrieve information about a particular school, and that is what we are going to be doing. All right, so how do we do that? Let me sharply reference Express documentation. So Express documentation for routing is actually not bad. So they mentioned how to pass parameters when we are building a route. So they said we can do something like this and then pass ID. Okay, so which is what we are going to be doing. So we are not going to go all the way, but then we just need to stop here to be able to like pass ID. This is quite complex, but then we could apply it in some other cases. But for what we need to do, we just need to like these two levels will be sufficient for what we need to do. All right, so to do that, what we are going to do is we are going to create another controller action that says module export. We say get uni get uni uni by ID, and we say it is equals to async. Okay, so we don't necessarily have to say it is equals to async because we are not actually awaiting anything right now, but in future cases we are going to be awaiting some requests. So let's just use async already. Then another thing to note is that your code can actually be very simple. So you note that I said extract try and catch middle to a middleware function in part 4. So that means in the next tutorial I'm going to be extracting the entire try and catch. Like so try and catch will not be in the code. So we'll have a very simple code like this, which is easier to read and simpler. Do you understand? Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that in part 4. But for this one, before we proceed, I want us to actually debug to see how these parameter things work. So I'm going to say request and response. Okay, so now I'm going to say console.log. Let's say console.log. Let's say request. Okay, we are not going to get to the console.log method actually, but let's just console.log. So let us console.log request, and now this get uni by ID. Yeah, just like we did the last time, we need to use it to create a route, but then to reduce the timeline of the video so that I could easily finish it, I have done that already. So I imported it here. I said, so we have get unilist already. So I imported get unilist by ID here as well. And following the documentation that we just saw, I've created the route already. So it's also a get method. So I'm calling it list of schools, and then it takes in the parameter ID. Then just the same way, we map it here as well, so that when it is called, it points to the controller and the action is executed. All right, so you don't need to come to index to do anything under index again for routes, because we have already defined the routes. The only time we are going to come here again is when we have another route that we are creating. So that's why we chose this structure in the first instance. It makes life easy. All right, it makes life really really easy. Another thing that will be amazing though is that you use TypeScript instead of JavaScript. All right, but then this tutorial is using JavaScript because I think some of the people watching this video are not people that use TypeScript already. But then I'm glad if you are using TypeScript already, that's fine. It's still the same process, but then in the case of TypeScript, you will not have to say module.export. You could just say export this. You could export this as a variable, then inherit it in your index.js for the entry point of the application. Okay, yes. So to proceed, we have defined this route here now. So we said router.get list of schools, but then we want to be able to pass a unique ID. All right, so we have ID 6, for instance, which should return University of Port Harcourt to us. So let's open Postman and give this a try. So you can just copy this. So copy this and come to Postman. Okay, so okay, I created another request. So you just come here, duplicate, and then rename it. So that's what I did. So list of schools by ID. Okay, so in the next tutorial as well, I'm going to show you how to extract your base URL API. So I could just extract up to v1, since this is common, and then turn it into a variable. Yeah, so I'll be doing that in the next video as well. All right, so instead of saying ID now, let's just replace it with the actual ID. So let's say 5 or 6 or anything that actually exists in our ID. So if we hit, okay, before we hit the send button, Uniroute API. Okay, I want us to debug so that we'll see what actually happens. Okay, so let's hit on run and debug. Okay, all right, so let's see send. Okay, all right, you've seen it already. Okay, so now this is what I wanted you to see actually. Whenever you have a request, or whenever you are trying to like communicate with a server, this is what happens. Like this is especially in Express here, when there's a request and there's a response. This is how the request comes in. So request itself always comes with all these beautiful things that you don't need to know the meaning for everything right now, but then I'll be proceeding to explaining everything when we get to the point when we need to know how and how it affects what we are doing. So right now, what we are looking for is called parameter here, because we are routing with a parameter. So what we need right now is to look for that word parameter from here. All right, so we can see this is the base URL, API v1, API unit is v1. There is no body, obviously, because we are not posting a form. Yeah, so okay, I want us to look for the keyword parameter. Okay, so this is the original URL. The original URL is API this with list of schools and 5. Okay, yeah, look at this. So this is the word params. So it's parameter, but it's shortened as params. So we can see that what we actually have in our original URL, our original URL is this, but then the 5 that comes in here has been automatically mapped with what? With ID inside an object called params. So what does that mean? That means that when you structure your API request in this way, whatever comes last here is automatically assigned to whatever um, whatever name you call it in the routing. So this is what I mean by that. That means when I come to route now, so that means when I come to route, this is actually very important. So that means when I come to uni route now, and I say this is no longer ID, if I say this is name, for instance, in the case whereby we are building a search engine system like Google. So if I say this is name now, that would mean that that would simply mean that 5 now becomes name instead of ID. But since what we want to do is to search for a particular university by ID, yeah, first, so that means we can actually maintain this by saying ID. Okay, so now I'm going to do some form of validation. Although this kind of validation usually comes in when you already have your database and all that. But then I still want to do some kind of validation, even despite the fact that what we have is a static data from our JSON file. So I'm going to stop this. So now that I know that there's something called params in request. So this is what I need to do. I need to say const uni id equals to what? Rec dot what? Params. And since it's an object, id. Do you understand? So like this now, I can get the id that came with the params and then say it is equals to uni what? Uni id. So now this is what I will now say. I would say just as a means of validation, yeah. So I would say try catch, yeah. I would say ex, and I would say console.log ex. Okay, all right. So what will I say here? Just to make sure that um when we are requesting for ID, because users can be funny, yeah, just to make sure that in the place of ID, somebody is not typing in names, yeah. So this is what we can do. We can say const okay, what should I call it? Let's say enforce, N-F-O-R-C-E-D, enforced ID equals do let me see enforced ID. So let me just say const id. So since we said junior id, so let's now say const id equals type of, yeah, let's say it is equals type of uni id. So I would now say that if I would say if id equals number, yeah, just to make sure that when the request is coming in the postman, it comes in as number, yeah. So I would say okay, so I'll say if id, if, because I'm saying const id equals to type of unit id, making sure that I want to get a number from the parameter. I don't want string, yeah, because anything other than a number will be seen as like might actually cause error in my program. So I would say okay, const id equals type of uni id, and if the type of uni id is equals to number, again, this will be one advantage of TypeScript here. I would not necessarily have to do this if it was TypeScript. But then, so I'm saying if id equals type of number, yeah, I'd say okay, I would say I want to try something. If this is equals type of number, so I'd say what's the name of our uni data? Okay, so I'd say uni data. So I can look for whatever that ID is and get the name of the school. So I can say const uni equals uni data. Okay, so this is, so if you are conversant with JavaScript, when you are dealing with an array data, you want to search for a particular information from an array data, there are several ways you could do it. But let me just quickly show you something. So MDN, gosh, what happened? Oh, okay. My internet got disconnected. Okay, I'm going to pause this video to like get my internet back up. Okay, all right. So I'm going to try that again. I'm going to say MDN. I'm going to say MDN. Okay, so JavaScript. Okay, so I'm going to come to, this is a very good reference for like anything JavaScript. Okay, so where do they have this thing? So I'm going to say array prototype. Let's see. Okay, so there are several things that there are several functions that could apply to an array method. So we have array is quite broad, but then I need just one of either this guy will work for me, array prototype for finding, and okay, another one that could work for me is select. Yeah, select could also work for me. But then, so let's see how find works, because what I'm actually doing is that I'm finding that ID in my data, and whatever university owns that ID that was passed, I will just like display it. So it says the find method of array instance returns the first element in the provided array that satisfies the provided testing function. If no value satisfies the testing function, undefined is returned. Okay, all right. Thank you. How does it work? Oh, so if I have something like this, I'll say array.find, then a callback function element. Okay, let me run this. Okay, all right. So similarly. Okay, I'm a musician too. At least that's what I like to tell myself. All right, so I'd say uni data. So I'll say uni data dot is an array method. So I'll say uni data dot find, and I'll say x. Don't let me use x. We've always been using x from school days, so I'll say z. Just because every time in mathematics they say find x, so I'm not finding x, I beg. So I'd say z goes to, whenever you say anything like this is what it means. So I'm saying z goes to z goes to z dot id where id equals oh no, sorry. Okay, wait, okay, let me go back. So z goes to id. Okay, where okay, z goes to id where okay, so z goes to id where z to id equals my id that is coming. This should work. Okay, so what I'm saying is that the moment I said unit data dot find, and I'm passing a callback function inside. So this is what happens. Let me break this down to you. So unit data dot find, the moment find comes in and I open my when I open this bracket to say z, this automatically becomes the whole of unit data. So this z automatically becomes everything that I have in my array. So this z has access to University of Lagos, Obafemi Awolowo, University of Nigeria. That's what this means. So it's like doing a kind of mapping underground. Yeah. So when I said unit data to find z, so z automatically becomes this unit data. So now I'm saying go to z.id. Do you understand what that means? So that means I am mapping z into unit data, but to be specific, I don't want everything from unit data. I just want unit data where the id equals to what? The id that I am obtaining from my route params. Do you understand? So what this will simply do is this becomes unit data, but then it becomes the unit data that has the id equals to what? The id that will be coming in. Oh, okay, hold on. hold on. So this should not be id because this is id to compare. Okay, so if id equals number, so what we should have here is uni id, not id, uni id. Okay, but then we want to make sure that uni id, okay, we want to make sure that uni id is a type of number first, yeah, so that you don't just enter string. So if uni id is a type of number, then this code should execute. So we say const uni equals to uni data blah 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 blah. So if uni data is, so let's say console.log, yeah, let's say console.log uni, was that what we call it? Yeah, uni, like a particular uni. So we can run this on debug again just to see what happens before we wrap up the function. So I'm going to debug again. Okay, so let's hit play. Okay, so let's come to Postman. Let's say 5. So let's send. What happens? It goes to okay. So what happens? Okay, so uni data was 5. Okay. Const id type of uni data. Okay, so its type of uni data equals number. Okay. id string number. No. Okay, hold on. Okay. Const id is type of uni id. Okay. Something is wrong here. Okay, so uni id request of, let me see, request of params. Okay, dot id. It's coming in as a string. It's coming in as a string because okay. Okay. So what can we do? We want it to be equal to the type of number. Okay, but then so this is it. Since it is coming in as a string, Abby. Okay. It's coming in as a string. Okay. Okay. So remember that I mentioned that this kind of validation usually comes from the database, yeah, like from maybe your mongoose query, the way you structure it. But I still want us to have some kind of validation, anyways. And this is not going to work for us because this is string. But I want just the number. I want just the number. Okay, so let me just try something. So let me say const split. Yeah, so let me say const split split input. Yeah, I'll say const split input equals to uni id. Okay, hold on, let me see. So let's say uni id dot split. The split is a JavaScript method. So I want to split after I want to split, so whatever comes after this as a separator. Yeah. So let's say console.log split split input. Okay, split input split input 1. Okay, because there are 2 items there and I want to take the item that comes immediately after this guy. So if I say okay, so let's try to run this again. Will this work? Okay, so let's see. Okay, let's see how it goes. Okay, so it comes 5 split input Okay, yes, that will work. So I want to split the input because I want to enforce number, yeah, so that we are sure that you are entering numbers. So let's say split inputs 0 and 5. Okay, so when I say split inputs 1, what do I get? I get 5. Okay, so let me assign this to a variable and say const const what should I call it? Const put const input equals to, I want to enforce number, so I'm casting it to number, so I'm casting it to number. So input, I'll say split split input 1. Okay, all right. So okay, but yeah, mind you, this particular enforcement might not work if um okay, depends on how you like separate it anyways. But then yeah, it should work even if it is double numbers. So I was trying to like think maybe it will work or not. But yeah, that's fine. So now, okay, so now I have constraint equals to request the parameter ID. I have split input. I am taking the number that comes after this guy. Okay, so I said const input equals to number split input 1. That means the first array. Okay, so this will work for me. Okay, this will work. This will work. Okay, so now I would say const id equals to type of, instead of saying type of uni id, I'll say type of input. Yeah, and I'll say if the id equals number, const id equals to type of input. If id equals number, I would then say const uni equals uni data dot find. Okay, so let's try this again now. Let's control s this. I wanted the data to be short, but then I'm very sorry. I just had to like do this explanation so that you see how everything works, and that's why I decided to like run it on debug mode and all that. So let's hit play. Let's come back to Postman and let's do send. Okay, so let's see how everything works. Okay, so now from the top we have uni id is 5. Okay, so we are going to split it. Okay, we have two arrays now. After splitting, we have 0 and 1. So now we are taking the input, which is 5. Yes, awesome. And we are converting that 5. Yeah, like you can see, so we are taking 5, which is the first element in the array 1. Sorry, the second element in the array 1. And we want to enforce that 5 should become number. So it is a string presently, but the moment I do const input equals to number, this is casting. Okay, so now I have input equals to number. Oh, okay, so also here we should not pick uni id, we should be checking input instead, imput, because input is the number we have. Okay, so input. Okay, so instead of console login, yeah, let's just proceed. I'm very sure it will work for us. So let's do consuming, let's do if it is number and this exists. Okay, consuming equals to unit data dot find. Okay, because if there is a unit data, yeah, we are going to get the unit data. But then if okay, so let's do it this way. So let's say okay, so if unit data, okay, unit data dot find. Okay, so let's say um return res.json. This is just a basic validation here. So let's say data uni, and then let's say the message 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 is uni by id, and then we'll definitely need a comma there. Okay, but then so this is just one level checking. I'm only checking if the id is a type of number, yeah, to execute the find. Okay, So if I really want to validate here, it needs to be a two-way validation, because what if the ID is type of number, but then I'm not getting this guy. Okay, so I still need to have another validation. So I would say I'll use necessarily if if uni, I'll just say if uni is not equals okay, not equals yeah. If it's not equals to undefined, yeah. If uni is not equals to undefined, so let's use, because I'm using not. So if uni is not equals to undefined, yeah. So I would say yeah, this makes sense to me. This makes no sense. Okay. So all right. So we are checking first if the ID you have entered is a number. Yeah. So if it is a number, we use that number to find the item in the database, and if it is not undefined, we tell you or we return it to you. But else, yeah, else we say we are going to have two else cases. So we say first we say return 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 res dot json. You see message no item from item, no item, see no item found. Then we want to tell you data is actually empty. Okay, that's the first case. Yeah, but in the second case, whereby the ID you've entered is not even number in the first instance, so we want to have that return outside here and tell you something like return return res.json. Okay, so this time around, let's see where's the status. Let's put status there. Where's your status? 400, because you're supposed to enter ID, but you're entering number. So JSON. Yeah, so we're allowed to do that. So we see message MESSAGE bad request. Bad request. QUEST. Okay, so let's see what this brings when we try to, let's save this. Yeah. Okay, and then I didn't intend for this thing to be this complicated, but I just wanted us to have a kind of validation actually. So let's restart this. So we are going to test for two cases. Okay, so we are going to test for the correct case when the user enters a number, and another case where the user enters something wrongly. So okay, so when I come to Postman, Postman. Okay, so let's try with 5 first. So with 5, let's send. What happened? Oh, okay. It has not. Okay, it has not gone through. Okay, so now it has gone through. Okay, so let's come back to Postman. Let's start with 5. Okay, let's start with 5. Okay. This will definitely work, I'm sure. Okay, so let's start from the top. We have uni ID 5 coming in as a string 5. Okay, so we are splitting it. That's fine. We cast it 5. Fine. So it's now a number. Okay, so now we said if ID is type of number, is ID type of number? We can't know until we pass. Okay, okay, so this ID is type of number, so that's fine. So we go to the next function. Okay, so the next function checks with that ID and it says, okay, is there a uni data with that information? Yeah, so is that correct? That's fine. So const uni ID, const uni equals to uni data dot find with that ID, yeah, of 5 gives us University of Zaria. So that's fine. Okay, so this is what we get. Okay, so that's nice. That's nice. Okay, so when we come to Postman now, we can see that instead of having the whole university, we just get University of Zaria. And this is what it means to pass a parameter to an API route using Express. This is what Express means by passing a parameter. So you see, we are passing 5, which is the ID of the university, and that has brought us to just that university name. Okay, so let us test our validation rule, because we set some validations to make sure that the user enters. Okay, we don't need this. To make sure that the user enters a correct ID. Can I move this? Okay, I can't move this. Okay, API controller. Okay, so let me come back here. So let me come to the controller. Okay, so we wanted to make sure the user enters number, and then even if they enter a number, does the university exist for the ID they are finding? So our ID is up to 10. So just to test our validation here, let's enter ID of 51 or 50, and let's send this. Okay, so if our validation is correct, we should have this response: no item found, instead of uni by ID. So let's test it. Let's see if it works. If ID equals number, ID is equals to number, obviously. But is there a uni with that ID? Okay, input 50. Is there a ID with that? If ID equals, okay, undefined. So it is undefined. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. So what we get this time around is no data. So when I come back to the postman, you can see it says no item found. So I can even go like specifying further, so you are the one that entered the wrong ID. So I'll say no item found with that ID. Or I could, if I want to like be extra, I'll just say, just to be extra, so that you know what you did wrong. I'd say no ID found with no item found with yes, yes, just because I want to be extra. Input. Okay, all right. So now when we go again, let's go again. So let's go again to like just so we get that error. So instead of getting this message, so the user knows that it's their fault. There's nothing wrong with the application. Yeah, it's not going to say it's user fault, but just so that the user knows they are entering something wrongly. So let's go again. Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so when I come to the postman, what happened? Okay, that's strange. Let me see. Did I do anything wrong? Okay, so I said no item found with no item found with ID. Okay. No, oh, I didn't. Did I save it that time? I don't think I saved it. Okay, so now let's save it. So let's try again. That should work. It should work. It should really work. It should work. It should work. It should work. It should work. All right. When I come back, okay. So let's open Postman. So let's see. Okay. Okay. That's fine. Message. No item found with input 50. Okay. So okay. Is there anything in Postman already? Yeah, so this is it. No item found with ID 50. So I think this is a better way to return a kind of error that guides your user. So how to properly use your application. All right, so let's test for the last case here, which is entering something that is not a number. So let's test that. So instead of entering an alpha a number here, let us enter an alphabet. Let's say XYZ. So let's say send. Okay, let's come back to our postman, our Visual Studio. So what we should get is bad request. Yeah. So hash, okay. If ID equals to number, it should jump off. Yeah. If ID equals to number. What's input? Oh, okay, okay. I'm going to have an error. I am going to have an error. Okay, so what's the error? I know what happened. I know what happened. I know what happened. Okay, so it says no item found with any end because we said, okay, I should not have done it that way. Okay, okay. Let's just correct this. So we said if ID equals number. Okay, so we should instead say if ID is not equals number. We should check against it, not check for it. So if ID is not equals to number, so let's try that. This will work better for us. So when I come back to Postman and I say XYZ and I say send, 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 send. Okay, yeah, so now we should get the correct error. Yeah, so this is bad request. Bad request. 400, bad request. Okay, yeah, so that works. Okay, yeah, so we have it. Bad request. All right, thank you. This has got to be the longest tutorial. Okay, but then the next tutorial will not be this long. So the tutorial was this long because I was trying to like be detailed. Yeah, so instead of just running the APIs, we were debugging to really understand the entire process flow. But then so I took time to do that so that in the next video when we'll be talking about middlewares and probably writing more controllers, yeah, we won't like be doing all this again. So yeah, if you are really watching the video and you understand, yeah, or better still, if you don't understand, you could take your time to like watch again. You can like watch on replay, or better still, if you have a question, you could drop your question for me in the comment section. But then if you understand the video, I want you to try out something. So here is a challenge for you. So I'm going to drop this challenge here. Write an action controller. Fetches uni by name. Okay, let me just say uni by. Okay, so this is it. So I have written an action controller that gets uni by ID. All right, but this time around, I want you to try, just try. So this is one of the ways that you develop. Yeah. So I want you to write your own API, your action controller for an API here. So, but this time around, instead of getting the university by the ID, I want you to get the university by the name. So just give it a trial, and if you're able to try, comment on this video that you tried, and yeah. But if you're not able to try, I'll solve that before I proceed to the next video. Thank you, and do not forget to subscribe. Thank you. Bye.